Welcome to today's video. My name is Jeannie, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit of one of the aspects of the variable system. Normally they don't recommend you start off looking into your variables. If you're new to human design, they want you to concentrate on your authority and your strategy. But I kind of like the advanced stuff. I have been studying human design for, I want to say, maybe over 2 years now. But I find if you naturally feel drawn to it, go for it. But anyways, I'm gonna get started. When we're talking about determination or digestion, we're gonna be looking at the top left arrow. Now for me specifically, my arrow points to the left, and there is a there's a circle underneath that arrow that's yellow with a number 3 in it, which has to do with hot thirst digestion. So this video is specifically on hot thirst digestion / determination, because that's what I'm familiar with. That's what I can, I feel, that's what I want to talk about today. So that's where we're gonna go. Okay, so the top left arrow, when it's pointing left, it indicates an active trait. And the left arrow, regardless of if it's pointing left or right, it indicates how your brain naturally prefers to take in and digest food, information, and life. Okay, so because mine points left, it means I have an active brain. Okay, so there's 3 components to this. One, my brain prefers to digest food and information with structure and consistency. Personally, I do like to organize. If I'm talking about information, I like my information to be structured. If the information feels like it's all over the place, it's harder for me to take in the information. And I've noticed that it's when, the person I'm learning from, I'm very sensitive to this. If their work isn't organized or it isn't as structured, and I don't mean rigid, but I can literally feel if it's all over the place, and that kind of gives me an insight of how internally they could be a little all over the place as well, and I have a difficult time learning. It's I have to take their information, reorganize it, structure it, give it a little bit of structure, so that way I can understand it a lot easier. Second characteristic, you do best with a routine and consistent pattern. Now, for me, I do find that it takes me a minute to be able to pivot. Any change, especially if it's abrupt, can cause my brain to freak out. It's kind of no, we already had a plan. We had 1, 2, 3, we laid it out. Something's changed, alarms sound off. If I had little people in my head, everybody would be screaming and freaking out. So what I've done is just created a lot of awareness around this. Normally when I start my day, if my brother's home, I'll say, hey, do we have anything today scheduled for today? He tends to be a lot more spontaneous. I don't do super well with being spontaneous, and I am learning to embrace that, because I feel a little bit of how do you say it? Of being spontaneous, I'll put it that way, can be fun. It could be a good thing. And I also kind of I find I do get a little bit bored sometimes, so I like to shift things around, especially because I don't like this not being able to pivot quickly. So I do it very intentionally, just to kind of retrain my brain and have it not freak out as much when there isn't as much structure. So sometimes because he knows this, I'll say, okay, I'm having trouble readjusting because my brain isn't used to this, and then he'll be a little bit more patient with me, because I do feel I don't want to say waste, I lose a lot of time where my brain is trying to come up with the most efficient way to do the things now, versus when it already had a plan, it kind of already had everything figured out. So I'll tell him, I need a little minute to be able to get organized. Other times, now this is very helpful if you have people around you, kind of to train them or to tell them, explain to them how you work, if you resonate with this. this is just how I do it. At times when there's like a lot of change coming at me very quickly and it's just like we have to go with it, what helps me is just kind of be given instructions on what to do, or be given like one task. And my brother just intuitively does this, which I think is kind of cute and funny. But he'll say, okay, like let's say all of a sudden he decides that he wants to go to the mall and it's getting pretty close to closing time, or like it's not even that close, maybe like an hour or two. For me, that's cutting it pretty close. So he'll say like, okay, or like he'll want to take me out to dinner or something. He's like, okay, I want to take you out to dinner. I know we weren't planning for this. All you have to do is get ready and meet me in the car in like 30 minutes. So I'm like, oh, okay. So my brain has something that like specific to work on. It's not like, what do I do? Like, what do I do first? That's kind of like how it feels internally. So that's kind of like how it feels for me, where yeah, having like a consistent pattern does help, but two, this is like from my personal perspective, I kind of got bored of having like a really fixed, tight schedule. When I was in college, I had back-to-back classes for like, I did that for maybe like 3 years, and I kind of got fed up of like having somewhere to be every single hour. So I started playing with a little bit more flexibility. So now, which might be more of like a characteristic of a passive trait, but this is how I've really been liking doing things that allows more flow. And also, like, okay, I'm gonna maybe put an unpopular opinion here in human design, in the human design community, but I just don't live human design by the book. I do it more intuitively, more of like what feels better for me. I'll try something, I don't like it, I rather come up with my own rules, okay? So if you're more of like, this is what human design says and this is how I have to do it, this probably isn't the best space for you to be in, because I'm more of like, I don't like being told what to do. I'll take it into consideration, but I kind of like want to try my own thing. Or I'll do a combination of like, okay, this is what it says, I'll experiment with it, and then I'll kind of tweak it and come up with like a new way that combines by the book and what I want to do. So that's just kind of like how I like to work. But anyways, the way I build in structure into my day is I look at what's fixed. So let's say when I used to have a side job, I knew that I had to be at work at Tuesdays and Thursdays, and every Tuesday pretty much looked the same every week. I would get up at a certain time, I would get to work at around the same time, eat at around the same time. Like, there was a pattern. The same with Thursday. So other than that, like, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the weekends, it was very flowy. I did a variety of things. I didn't really have a set pattern or structure in place. It was mostly like those 2 days were fixed, and then I built around that. Another way that I feel like needing to have like a consistent pattern really shows up for me is in dancing. When I'm dancing, I feel like I didn't really notice this, because like I do have like a Hispanic background. I'm Hispanic, I'm Mexican. So I'll feel like a lot of our dances have to do with like holding your partner, and as long as like I'm being held and I'm being led, I'm okay. But as soon as a person lets go, it's like I freak out and I just stand there because my brain's like, I don't know how to move, I don't know what to do next. So this really shows up for me, which I think is one of the reasons why I never really liked dancing like American music, disco type music, like club type music, because there's a lot of freestyle and I'm like, I don't have the steps, I don't know what to do. Salsa is another one where I don't enjoy dancing salsa unless I have a really good partner. If I have a really good partner, even though I'm not the best at dancing salsa, it's like I energetically sync up to them and the moves just come out. It's like my body knows what to do. So I think it's like the the most fascinating thing ever. But as soon as someone lets me go, or if there's a turn involved, I kind of like I lose my rhythm. So I think that's kind of interesting. Okay, the third one. They recommend trying to eat using regular meal times and to keep a regular work or study schedule and see how that makes you feel. For me, again, like I've already mentioned, I don't like feeling boxed in. So for me, this looks more like I eat every like 2 hours. I wake up and I eat within an hour of waking up. I sleep a minimum of 8 to 10 hours. Sometimes I need 12 to 16 hours, depending on what my body's asking for. I work 1 to 2 hours a day. I move at least 15 minutes a day. Well, not every day, but ideally like 2 to 4 times a week right now. So it's not so much about having like, I do something at 1 o'clock and then 2 o'clock and like really laying out my day hour by hour. It's more of like because right now I don't wake up at the same hour and I don't go to sleep at the same hour. So it's more of like kind of a little bit of relative, like to when I wake up and then when I eat, just kind of keeping in mind that I will eat within 2 hours of the last time I ate. So that's what it looks like for me, again, because I right now just feeling like I have to be somewhere at a specific time, it just doesn't feel good to me right now. I did it for a while, and I will say that kind of like the benefits of having a schedule like that is that it kind of takes a bit of the thinking process out of it. I find that my brain likes to think like of all the possibilities, and then I can get stuck on making lists or planning and not really take any action. I spend a lot of time doing that. So scheduling things can save you time. It can take some of the thinking process out of it, and it can like really reduce the amount of thinking you need to do. And the example that came to mind was like, I think Steve Jobs, the Apple guy, he kind of had like pretty basic outfit, black shirt, jeans. I know there's another financial guy, I don't remember his name because I didn't really follow him for long, but he basically had like tees, t-shirts, same sneakers, like multiples of them. That way when he got dressed, he didn't have to spend much time thinking about what he was going to wear for the day, so he could use his time more efficiently on things that created more wealth for him versus, spending that time on thinking what he wants to wear for the day. So, if you have a very active brain, it's like you're always thinking and you're always processing. And this is a very cool thing that I learned, or that I really like learning about, is that your brain is the biggest consumer of calories and energy. So for me, like, even though I'm not very active, like physically moving, I still need a lot of calories, a lot of food, because all of it goes to my brain. Processing things mentally takes a lot of energy. So if you're doing things like fasting or counting calories, see if you feel different if you start eating a little bit more. Again, keeping in mind that most of your caloric intake is going to your brain. I also want to say that your sensitivity on this, or like how much calories you're going to need, can vary depending on how you're wired and what centers are defined in your chart. Just to give y'all a rough idea of what my chart looks like, I have my head center, ajna, throat, and G center all defined, and they're defined right down the middle. To me, it feels like the superhighway that just connects everything. So I process a lot of information especially at an unconscious level. Add to that I'm a projector, I have a penetrating aura. There's a lot that my system picks up on. So even though I'm not moving a lot throughout the day, it's like energetically there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of stuff being taken in. So my body needs the food for energy to process and things like that. So another thing they say about active brains is that they have sharp memories and they can think consistently. It's like your brain's always on, so the key is to think the right things. So like if your brain's always on, just try to create awareness of like, what is it that I'm thinking of? Am I thinking negative thoughts? Am I thinking worst case scenarios? And you want to make the shift over to better feeling thoughts that are going to be serving you a lot more. Because if you're using your brain, again, you want to use it for things that are for your good instead of things that are not. And also, kind of like the thing of thinking less might not resonate with you. It might be a little bit difficult to shut your brain off. So again, I don't know if I'm going to go into this later. Oh, I didn't hear, and then we might talk about it later as well. But for me, it feels like I've got a supercomputer inside my head that processes a lot of information. And for me, thinking less, like before I had awareness around this, I feel like it was a little bit more difficult. Now I'm more open to playing with the concept of thinking less and kind of like clearing my mind. And it can be a little bit challenging because it's like a thought comes in, or like I start, like even with music, sometimes if my brain is like really, really active and it's a song that's got lyrics, my brain will start thinking about the lyrics, and there'll be like several little tangents. So when my brain is that active, I normally switch to instrumental music and really focus on the notes. There's no words, it's just sound. And I very intentionally bring my brain back to just focusing on the notes. And that really helps, because like I find when I am processing a lot, like a lot for me, which is a lot, I'll start to feel, it feels kind of like a computer that's overheating. I don't want to describe it as a headache because it's not a sharp pain. Maybe it'll feel like a pressure, or just kind of like a little, my brain's like throbbing a little bit, like, hey, I'm starting to overheat, I need you to stop thinking, give me a rest, give me time to rest. That's what it feels like my brain says when I'm really, really overdoing it, or really kind of like thinking in circles. So create awareness, like, are you are you thinking around in circles? Are your thoughts looping? And then I'll go for a walk, or I'll put on music, and when I go on a walk, like I will really just focus on the experience of the walk. What does the wind feel like? What does the sun feel like? How do my feet feel on the ground? And just really bring my awareness to my body, because it can be really easy for us to get stuck in our head because of all the process that's going on. There's a lot of energy, and especially if you don't have any centers defined like towards the lower part of your chart, I feel like that could also make it so much more easier to get stuck in your head. Okay, so going back to the material, they say that with active brains you can recall the information you need to, and you don't really need to be asked questions. I find that I differ from this a bit, because in my mind, like in my brain, I just feel like there's so much information that I need a little bit of structure in order to come up with like the action plan. So when I am like coaching clients or just looking at someone's chart, I need some context. I like them to tell me kind of like what they're feeling, what they've been thinking, what has been going on in their world. And then it's just like very naturally my brain can pull, okay, you need this part, you need this part, and then I can come up with like just a beautiful spread of information that can really, really help the person. Hello, Megan. Did you change your mind? Do you want to say hello? Say hi. Okay, no, it's gonna annoy. Okay. So yeah, I form some structure by asking questions. Otherwise, it just feels like this vast ocean of information, and I'm not, like, it's so much that I need a little help narrowing it down. That's how it feels like for me. Okay, so I already mentioned how, like, the left arrow, it's got 2 numbers below it. There's a yellow circle with a number inside. For me, it's the number 3, and that relates to hot thirst, digestion, or determination. So determination is how you are designed to take in food and information for optimal digestion and nourishment. So for hot thirst determination, they recommend you fuel up before activities. I do this a lot. Like, if I know I'm going to go out, even if it's for dinner, I like having a snack, especially if I don't know how long I'm going to be waiting. And because most of my meals look like snacks and I eat quite regularly, I like to fuel up before activities. If I'm running errands, I'm usually snacking, or I'll stop by to get food, and I won't eat all of the food at once. I will spread it out as I am out and about. Another very important thing is hydration. Hydration is super important for hot thirst determination. And I don't know if this is my idea, so like if you do have hot thirst, kind of like let me know if you feel this is true for you as well. But I feel that I hydrate better, easier, and quicker when I'm drinking warmer liquids, as opposed to when I'm drinking cold water. I feel like it's easier for me to hydrate with hot water. Another characteristic of hot thirst is that you do best with foods and beverages that are cooked or spicy, or that at the bare minimum they're at room temperature or above, because they are warming to the digestive system. Our systems naturally run colder, so they need the warmth of food or drink in order to rev up our system, and the warmth is going to help us open up and kind of like relax. When I think of like how my muscles feel when it's cold outside, or my body's cold, like my muscles tend to feel harder. It's harder to move. I'm not as mobile, not as flexible. So just pay attention to how does your body feel. Does your body feel cold? Does it feel warm? And for me, it kind of like feels like a car in the wintertime. If you just like turn it on and go, it's not going to run as smoothly as when you give it a few minutes to warm up, because you know the motor, that engine, needs a little time to warm up and be able to work more efficiently. So that's kind of like how my body feels when it's on the colder side. When I'm warmer, it's just easier to move and things like that. They say, this is where I'm gonna rant a little bit, that people with hot thirst digestion normally thrive, or they prefer to live in warmer climates. Personally, I do not resonate with that. I do not like hot weather. For me, kind of like my jam is that 50 to mid 60 degree weather, like sweater weather, fall, spring type of vibes. That's where I feel like I thrive, where the air is brisk. I can throw on a sweater. There's a little bit more like variety throughout the day. It's not super hot. I find that the hot weather tends to lower my blood pressure, and as a projector with like 0 motors, I find that my blood pressure is already relatively on the low side, so the hot weather just like really brings it down a little bit more, and I get really cranky. I do not like the hot weather. So another thing that they recommend for hot thirst people is to add spices to your food. Try ginger, cayenne pepper, and this is especially if you're eating things that are on the colder side. This is going to ensure that you get energy from your food. Otherwise, like if you're eating things that are too cold for your system, what the cold does, it sucks the energy from your system. So for me, it feels like if I've eaten something that's too cold, it feels like all the warmth from my body goes to my core, to my digestive system, and I kind of get, I could get sleepy, I could get sluggish, I could get kind of like this urge to just cuddle up, bundle up. And again, I'm going to bring in sensitivity to this. I do want to say that intuitively that it depends on how you're wired, what centers you've got defined. I don't think I've read anything officially on this. It's just, again, I'm kind of putting a few things together. So just let me know if this resonates with you. I find that I'm very, very sensitive to my environment and the food. Like if my food is too cold, I'll start shivering. Like I'll literally start shivering. And I want to say that if you have motors in your chart, which we have like 4 motors, you might not be as sensitive. Me, because I don't have any motors, I feel like I am more sensitive. There's a lot of openness in my chart, but also, like, for me, motors, if I think of them, they generate energy, right? So again, like, if you, this is coming from the perspective of a projector, if you're a generator and you've got, you know, the sacral center can produce a lot of energy, you might not be as sensitive as, for example, a projector with 0 motors. So I'm also curious to see if you find that's true for you. Another thing that I have been playing with is really infusing my food with warmth and love. Like energetically, I will send warmth and love, and I'll just like put my hands over my food and really send it love, infuse it energetically with love. And this kind of has to do with like performing alchemy at an energetic level, which we're going to talk about more towards the end. But I find that whenever I do that, my food gets broken down, it gets digested a lot easier, and it's easier for my body to process it. So if you find that like you like certain cold foods, like for example, I like sushi, and this is why I say like I don't like living it by the book, because I'm like I will be eating the sushi because I like the sushi. So I will infuse the sushi with warmth and love and things like that, and I'll do other things which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, or how to bring in other elements to not so that you don't feel like you have to deprive yourself from cold foods, okay? Because I don't think that's the vibe. I just, like, if you want to do that, go for it, but I'm like, I don't think we have to. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about like a little bit more into detail, like how this shows up to me. I've already mentioned this, but it's in my notes, so we're going to just kind of try to keep in order. I do use my brain a lot, so I process a lot of information, especially at an unconscious level. I feel like this is amplified by the fact that I'm a projector, my defined centers, how I'm wired, the openness in my chart, all that. So for me, I find that I don't really, like, my hunger cues aren't like what I normally think of people experience, like my stomach growling or things like that. I've had to learn what my personal hunger cues are. I find that I get hunger pains, and it's when like I've just waited way too long to eat, because I'm waiting to feel hungry, and the way that I feel hungry, it isn't necessarily coming from like my stomach, it's coming from my brain. I think I've already mentioned this, but I get kind of like tension headaches. The muscles in my neck, shoulder, head start really getting tight and feeling tense. And I've just created awareness around this, like whenever I start getting that type of sensation, I'm like, oh, when was the last time I ate? And will eating something help those muscles relax? And normally it does. And to me, it feels like my brain is asking for food. It's like, I am hungry, feed me, trying to get my attention. So that's what I started doing. Like when I started getting that tension headache, normally what I would do before is take a pill, because I thought it was a tension headache, and it was just my body letting me know that my brain needed more food. I'm not super strict about sticking to hot foods, like I said, because I like variety. I like using an intuitive process more. I don't like feeling restricted, so what I really got really intentional about was paying attention to how I feel after I eat. Do I feel energized? Am I shivering? Do I feel sluggish? Do I feel like I need a nap? How filling was the food? Does what I eat change the temperature of my body? That's a big one. Pay attention to the temperature of your body after you eat certain foods. And also environment. I think environment is a really big one that maybe isn't as stressed enough, but how does your environment change what you eat, or like the temperature of the foods that you can tolerate? I find that in the summertime for me, I am more drawn to fruits, which I normally ideally want them at least at room temperature. If I put them in the fridge, because they're gonna go bad if I don't, because I don't eat them fast enough, I will try to take them out of the fridge a night before and let them kind of like warm up room temperature wise. And because like when I think of there's a lot of people who really they will cook their fruit, like apples or peaches or things like that. For me, sometimes I'm like, that seems like a lot of work. Like time, which I do have the time, but just to me it doesn't feel like the vibe. Like sometimes, because I lose track of time, I am learning to be much more intentional about keeping a more regular eating schedule. It just feels like, that's gonna take forever. Which is just a few minutes, but it's just the way my brain works, and I'm like, I don't want to wait. So I don't know, just like cooking my fruit just doesn't seem like the vibe. I'm going to talk about what I do later. Smoothies are another thing that I really find that I crave more. My body asks for more in the summertime. Juice is another thing that I notice that my body's like, I want juice. No milk. Fruit juices, apple, mango, pineapple, citrusy type of drinks. There was one time where like my body just wanted red smoothies. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go with it. There was another time where all I wanted to eat all day was watermelon, and I'm like, but I'm not having protein. My body's like, I want watermelon, so I gave it watermelon. Salads, again, something that I eat more in the summertime. I do add hot meat to it. It's normally grilled chicken. It could be shrimp. It could be fish. So for me, I really looked at like how environment impacts how I feel. If the environment is hot, I tend to gravitate more towards colder foods, and I want to use the terms here like a little bit relative. Colder to like what I normally eat, but still like not freezing, unless like I'm super hot, like an ice cream would feel really good to me. If it's cold outside, I naturally gravitate more towards hot foods and drinks. So for me, it feels more like finding that balance between the inner and outer states to something that feels comfortable, something that feels warm, but for me more like not hot, super hot. So it's kind of like, for me, it feels like that perfect temperature that makes me smile or go like, ooh, that feels good, or like, ooh, that's cozy. That's kind of like the process I use to kind of like guide, or the best way I can describe like what it feels like to me. So take into consideration your environment, the food, the people you're with. I do find that I naturally gravitate more towards people who feel more warm, friendly, nurturing, versus someone who's like closed and rigid and kind of like closed off, or they're like very strict. I just naturally want to not be as close to them. So you can kind of also play with that and pay attention to like, who do you naturally gravitate more towards? Do you gravitate towards, like, how do they feel? Do they feel warm? I think I already mentioned this, but if I didn't, we'll add it here again. The environment, like, how can you warm up your environment? It can be like candles. See how you feel when you like add candles to the table while you're eating. or eat by the fireplace or things like that, and just see how your system reacts, how you feel, and just go from there and tweak it, make it your own. Okay, in the wintertime, I am more drawn to soups. I think I can pretty much have soup any time of the year. I feel like soup really helps my system warm up because it's got food, but it's also got the liquid. Earthy vegetables like potatoes are something that I feel like more drawn to in the wintertime. I feel like my eating patterns do change with the seasons. I tend to want coffee more in the wintertime. In the summertime, I've had coffee just like a small handful of times, and for me, coffee looks like instant coffee that I can control like how strong the coffee is. And it's been a few years now that I completely switched over to decaf because my system is really sensitive to caffeine. But I do like the taste of coffee. For me, it gives me like warm, fuzzy vibes. I remember my mornings with mom always involved like breakfast, but we always called it like coffee time, and we'd wake up like, it's coffee time, and it was always like a very warm moment that I shared with my mom, which involved food, it involved coffee, and probably like some sort of show before we started our day. So coffee, I still drink coffee. There are times where I'm like, I don't know if I'm feeling coffee, but I'll have it anyways. And then I'll start getting like a little bit of heart palpitations. I'm like, okay, my body did not want the coffee today, and I'll just drink more water to flush out the caffeine out of my system, which, like I said, it's decaf, but still, on days where like I wasn't really good at tuning in, or I kind of had doubts of whether or not to have the coffee, I'm learning to take that as a sign that I shouldn't have had the coffee. I won't have the coffee in the future. Hot tea is another thing that I really enjoy. Hot chocolate, homemade food. I feel like that has like warm vibes to it, so I feel like in the wintertime I tend to crave more homemade foods. Could be also because like I don't want to go out if it's too cold. In the summertime, I do feel like I want to eat out more. So now I'm going to talk a little bit like how I ate as a child. I come from a very traditional Mexican household. I feel like we always had, well, not always, but we did have home cooked meals a lot that looked like rice, beans, meat. Food was normally hot. I was trying to think of like any Mexican dishes that weren't hot, and kind of like the only thing that came to mind were like shrimp cocktails and ceviche. Like I'm sure there's more, but whenever I think back, I just always remember having like hot meals. And with like shrimp cocktails and like ceviche, again, something that I crave more in the summertime, and they're usually spicy. I learned to eat spicy food from a very young age, so chili peppers, salsa, like I can eat pretty spicy. For me, food that isn't spicy just doesn't taste the same. I always want some sort of hot, spicy thing to go with it. So that could be also a reason why, it didn't impact me as much as compared to like if I had been a cold thirst digestion, I probably would have experienced more digestive issues growing up because the food was too hot, too cold. And this kind of came to me just now. I do remember like if my food, I like my food hot. Like if it's hot food, I remember as a child, like if it wasn't hot enough, I would have trouble eating it. Now, I find that I do tolerate eating my food even if it's not as hot. But as a child, that was one of the things I was really picky about. Like if the food wasn't the perfect hot temperature, I couldn't eat. I could eat it. I just didn't want to. I would pop it back in the microwave. Back when we still had a microwave. I don't have a microwave anymore. Okay, moving on. Drinks. I find that I'm very drawn to drinks, but drinks without ice. I normally get, like if I go to a restaurant, I get my drinks without ice. That's how I've always ordered my drinks, which I thought was interesting. I tend to have cups in my room all the time, and my brother gets angry because he's normally the one that's in charge of doing the dishes, and he'll go around and collect the dishes that we leave in our rooms, and he'll come back with like 5 or 6 cups from my room, and he'll just look at me like, really? Because I do tend to reach for drinks a lot more. Another thing that I thought was funny is like, there was a time where in my car, I had a BMW, and the BMW had like 4 cup holders. Well, most cars have 4 cup holders, but anyways, I would use all of the cup holders myself. I would put coffee in one, water in another, juice, sweet tea. Sometimes like I would not have enough cup holders for the drinks that I had, so I thought that was interesting. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is hot water. When I really started playing with this Hot Thirst Digestion, I played with the concept of drinking hot water more than cold water just to see what would happen. I didn't like decide that that's how I was going to do it from that point forward. I just wanted to see how my body reacted to it. So I do notice that when like the food is a bit colder, the hot water helps. So I will complement, like if it's a salad or sushi or just something that's cold food, I will very intentionally drink hot water just to help my body keep that internal temperature comfy. And I just pay attention, like so that I'm not shivering, because like there was one point where like I just had something cold and I literally felt like I was literally shivering. Okay, so something I do very intentionally, especially when I want the cold foods, I don't like depriving myself. Anything I want to eat. The only thing I do pay attention is if it's something that I don't like I don't like the flavor of it. I have a taste cognition, so taste for me is very important. Or if it doesn't help my body feel good, that's when I cut it out. Especially I've noticed this with like certain Chinese foods. There's this place that my brother found that was relatively inexpensive, and he took me there, and I tried a little bit of everything that they had, but I did not like how it made me feel. Even though it was hot food, I felt like there was something in the food that my system did not like to process, and it took a few days for it to feel like it was out of my system. So primarily I pay attention to how does the food help my body feel and go off of that. Okay, when my system is a little bit colder, like I'll feel it with my hands and my feet if they feel colder, and I drink like hot water, I can literally feel the hot water going all the way down into my stomach. And the opposite is true. If the water is cold and my system's a little bit more on the warm side, I can feel like the cold water going down, all the way down into my stomach. So just some things that I pay attention to. I do find that the fastest way to warm up is to use hot water, drink hot water. And I also set an intention for when I'm drinking water. And let's say like I'm a little bit colder and I'm finding it like a little bit hard to move. I do have this water bottle that's insulated. It can keep cold drinks cold for like 8 to 12 hours, and it could also keep hot water hot for at least 8 hours. And I normally fill it up this much with hot water, and then I do the rest cold water, and it just leaves it's still hot, but not that I can't drink it comfortably. It won't burn my tongue. So I'll set an intention for my water. I can also do this even if the water is not at room temperature. I will infuse it with love, which when I think of love, it's kind of like a really warm, high vibration feeling. I will set the intention for this water to hydrate my body, to warm up my body, to bring it to the ideal temperature that it needs to be in order to function more efficiently and for me to feel better. So I find that like playing with those concepts and like energetic work of like really setting a strong intention and infusing the water with like the specific instructions that I would like it to do, it works really quickly for me. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about the active component. I mentioned in the beginning, because I have an active brain, one of the things that I really resonated with was eating on the go. When I was in college and had classes back to back, I would eat in between classes, and I found that's when I was the fittest, I think. And now how I implement that is when I'm running errands, I will eat on the go. And that helps me have the energy to get things done, especially because I don't have any motor centers defined. I can take other people's energy for bits of time, but I find that eating as I'm doing the things helps my energy levels stay more constant. I don't do this all the time when I go on walks, but sometimes I'll take a snack with me and I'll eat as I walk and really like just enjoy the process and just see how I find that like when I get back, I might not need to rest, like lay down and rest. Another thing that I've noticed is that sometimes I'll feel tired and I think, oh, well, maybe I've just been doing a lot and I need a nap or I need to rest. And it's actually that I need food. My body needs food. So this is still one that I tend to forget. I'm trying to create more awareness around this. And like if I'm starting to feel tired, like my body, my hands, my feet feel heavy, like I can't lift them, it feels like I'm dragging them, I'll think back, okay, when was the last time I ate? What did I eat? Do I need something a little bit heavier? Do I need more protein? Do I need more liquids? Because I do find that I get dehydrated easily. So, yeah, whenever I feel tired, I look into, do I need more food? Does my body need more food in order to get that energy to get things done? Another thing that I've noticed that I do a lot recently is that as I'm eating, like I'm dancing in my chair. Or I add a little bit of movement even if I'm sitting down as I eat. One, it feels very natural to me, and I don't know, so yeah, it feels really natural, and it kind of adds that little like active component. You might find that you like to like move around, like you have a hard time sitting down to eat. It could be because of this. Okay, so now for part 3, this is the last part, we're almost done. I'm going to talk about how hot thirst digestion relates to life. One of the keywords that I really liked and I'm going to be playing a lot more with is the word alchemist. You're someone who naturally is really good at turning something into something else. And I really, really love this idea of alchemy. So I've set intentions for, not just, we're not looking at like, okay, like let's say when you take, I love to cook. So when you take like these raw components and cook them, you transmute them, you change them into something else, right? But that can also apply to life, because digestion and determination doesn't only have to do with the food, it has to do with life, how we experience life. So I like to incorporate this alchemy concept to my content or to the work that I do with clients, and really infuse like my words within my work with this concept of alchemy. Another thing that I found that they suggest is giving warm things to the world, like love, creativity. One of the ways I've started to practice this is like I'll pick a word that's related to a concept or something that feels warm. literally could be the word warm, and I will intentionally move throughout my day embodying this word warm. So what does that look like? It could be like greeting people more warmly, smiling more, really getting into the frequency and vibration of warmth, and seeing how people react to you. They may react to you differently. I want to say that the other day I did this. Yesterday I went to get a KFC bowl because I've been craving one for a couple of days, but my brother doesn't like KFC and he's actually out of town, so I'm like, okay, well, I'll go get myself a KFC bowl. And part of my intention was like to move with more warmth throughout my day. And when I went to pick up my order inside, the lady's like, here, take this one too, because they canceled their order. I'm like, are you sure? She's like, yeah, I'll take it. They canceled their order. So I got like my bowl and like 4 chicken sandwiches. I'm like, I pretty much have food for like 2 or 3 days. So I feel like when you embody these frequencies that are natural to you, one, it's a lot easier. It's just kind of like doing it a lot more intentionally in the beginning, because it's like you're remembering that these things are natural to you, because like, the world, parents, school, teachers, authority figures, whatever, have kind of like shared their rules of how things work, and we take that on without realizing that we do. So I feel I really like working with like some of the words that I find in the material, like alchemy, warmth, and seeing how my experience changes. And it's really easy because they're just naturally inside of us, and it's just, we kind of gotta like dig them out from all the other stuff that we've been told. And again, I find it's very easy to do because it's a very natural vibration for us. Another thing that you can do is sit somewhere that feels warm, not only temperature wise, but again, tap into the feeling. Like, does this spot where I'm sitting could be the same table but a different chair. Like, I find that if I'm right smack in the middle of the table or of the row, it's too hot for me. I tend to like more like the outside area, the edges, closer to the head of the table. That's where I feel more comfortable. You can see how you feel sitting next to the fireplace. Again, people who feel warm and fuzzy, for me, I find that I tend to gravitate towards children and pets. Because, like, what's warmer than a child and a pet? Like, I find very innocent. So I find that I just naturally gravitate more towards them than maybe some of the adults. Another thing they say that applies to life is these are normally people who love to cook, they're crafty, they're into drawing, they like using their hands a lot. Again, that concept of alchemy and transmutation comes up. Anywhere you can add your magic to the things you do and how you move through the world. So again, just think of like, how can you infuse your particular gifts, your magic, even if it's, I think energetically is like the most powerful work we can do, and see how your experience changes. Another thing that I would recommend is like working with color. See how your body feels in certain colors, which colors feel warmer to your body, that cozy feeling, and play with color and see how your body temperature changes. Okay, the last thing I have for you, temperament. Kind of want to leave you with this question to contemplate, or this concept, this area of temperament. How can you bring more passion or heat or warmth into your life? How can you spice up your life? And you can experiment this with music. How does different music feel in your body? How does certain music affect the temperature of your body? How can you spice up your work, your relationships? I think that's another word that really kind of like, ooh, like I want to try that, spicing things up. And passion passion is another word that I find myself like really resonating with, and I think it's because I lost a lot of my passion when my mom passed away, and earlier this year my dad passed away, and again I found myself like really wanting to dive into like passion and kind of like reawakening that fire within me that I lost for quite a few years. But yeah, that's kind of like the last thing I wanted to leave you with. I think this is one of my favorite parts of the information. How can you bring more passion, heat, or warmth into your life, and see how that changes the temperature of your body. But okay, that was a lot of information. I like a lot of information because gives me a lot to play with. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I would love to hear if anything resonated, or if you want to share how some of this stuff shows up for you. If you want to share, one or two things that you would like to try in your life and see what happens, or anything like that, please comment down below. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is @JanieSalcedo, and that's all for today. I hope you guys are having an amazing day, and I will see y'all in the next video. Nugget, do you want to be in my video? Look. Oh, are you the cutest little nugget? He's been avoiding me lately. I don't know why. Could have been that I tried to bring him into the house and he completely freaked out. Not the best move on my part, but hey, you live and you learn. Let me get organized here. I'm still trying to check the lighting because I tried filming this yesterday and it was not ideal. I like good lighting, so I think this is much better. It's around 3:30 in the afternoon. I love this lighting. Okay. Yeah, like if you want to eat something cold, and I bring this up because like a lot of people really go by the book and they're like, no, I can't have anything cold because human design says I am hot thirst. I'm like, please, if you like it, eat it. But like obviously don't eat it if it makes you not feel good. That's the most important part, I think, paying attention to how it makes you feel, how it feels in your body when you consume the thing. So I think of like people with like hot thirst digestion, they say they could be people that love to cook. I do love to cook. I wasn't always like that though. I actually started getting into cooking when I really want to go get a ring light, y'all. When eating on the go, and I mostly do this when I'm out and about and I have errands to run. I still carry snacks with me, or I'll stop by and get something to eat. Ah, it's raining. And just munch on it in parts as I'm out and about. Okay, I'm just gonna stop here because it's raining. Let me know, comment down below if you have hot thirst digestion, if any of this resonates, if there's anything you want to implement, or if you go implement it and come back and tell me how it went. I would love to hear it. You can always find me on Instagram @JanieSalcedo. That's my handle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.